I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Well, with Election Day next week, we have invited the finalists in Duluth's 4th District City Council race to the studios for a candidates forum.
Duluth Mayor Emily Larson is here to talk about the damage from last week's storm and plans for cleanup.
And the author of a new biography on Miles Lord is here tonight to talk about the maverick federal judge.
These stories and the business news coming up on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. And Denny, it looks like winter may be here to stay despite my prediction last week that the snow would all be gone by now.
It's not gone in my yard.
Yeah.
We've got a lot more to come, don't we?
It keeps coming, but I hear it's good for the deer hunters.
That's what they tell me.
So anyway, we've got a full show tonight, so let's get started.
All right, Julie, thank you very much. Well, with the election just days away now, tonight we have our final forum with candidates running for Duluth City Council. Tonight we feature the 4th City Council District, which includes western neighborhoods, including Lincoln Park and up the hill to Piedmont and the airport area. Howie Hanson is the incumbent in the 4th District seeking re-election, and Renee Van Nett is the challenger in the 4th District race. Thanks to both of you for being here tonight. Renee, as the challenger, let's start with you. First of all, a little bit about yourself and why you want to sit on the City Council.
About myself, I ran for school board in 2015, and it was really good learning experience. My family's from northern Minnesota. We're Ojibwe, and we kind of migrated up here as one big group, and kind of got involved here. I'm a foster parent. I just bought a house. I'm super excited about that. I work at Community Action Duluth as a navigator for employment. I work on a citizen review board. I do lots of different work in the community for just generally the community and people. And that comes from a deep core of my culture about helping people. That's generally who I am, about helping people.
Okay,
so.
Thank you very much. Howie, why do you want to sit again on the council?
Well, let me just say this, Denny, and thanks for inviting the 4th District back here tonight. I just want to say that I've really gotten to know Renee during this election. I mean this very sincerely. She's a really classy woman, a great woman, would be a great representative for our district, no question. I wish I would have known her. I was telling her earlier, I wish I would have known her a little better. I may not have run, frankly, but why am I running? I think experience really does matter, and I think this is really a time in the 4th District that we're making some headway in the Piedmont Heights, Duluth Heights, Lincoln Park neighborhoods. You're seeing a real renaissance in the Lincoln Park District with the ramp up of the craft district with the restaurants moving in. It's really exciting, and I know Renee's worked hard on those type of things to develop those too. And so I found out that, while City Council in the last 4 years has not become my identity, it's really become my passion. And so, I just put my name out there, work hard, and try to continue to serve, and that's really, what gives me energy.
You mentioned the Lincoln Park Business District and what's happening out there with the revitalization. What role, if any, do you think the city should be having right now in terms of making sure that momentum keeps going?
Well, under the leadership of Mayor Emily Larson, I mean, there's, and it started with Don Ness, frankly, and we're seeing it throughout that whole corridor, the Lincoln Park and out in the western waterfront. And, under Emily Larson, Mayor Larson, it's continued, and they've got an attitude now where we want to help you developers, we want to help you business owners, we want to help use those $1,200 fund dollars, of the board, one of the boards I do sit on as a city councilor, to make those public investments and join you and continuing that revitalization. It's long overdue, and it's Lincoln Park's time. Would you agree?
I would agree. I would agree to that. The city's role is to help support that. I think businesses can do their work, but I think the support along with housing, we need some of that stuff going on there. Those different avenues to help the infrastructure strengthen the infrastructure that way.
Howie, let's talk a little bit about sick and safe time, your stand.
I'm against it. I think the unintended consequences are strong. I'm really concerned about that and the potential of the $15 minimum wage. That's one of the differences that Renee and I respectfully disagree on, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that, while I love the spirit of it, I came from an impoverished background myself. My parents were never off the system. So my parents were always either fainting sickness, or they were sick, or they were, incarcerated or whatever. So I understand that issue of, safe and sick. But I think that it's best left to be decisions made by the businesses themselves. I think we're doing fairly well, even though there's 48 or whatever % of the people who do not have that benefit. I just think the unintended consequences could potentially kill the golden goose of our economic development growth that we're sustaining in the business community.
Renee, your view, please.
I support the Earn Sick and Safe Time. I was born into generational poverty in the deepest way ever. And my mom didn't have it, therefore it made sure that I was at home watching the kids. I was at home trying to make sure people are fed, and I'm a kid, small at that point, so that's difficult. And I know that 46% of people don't have it that should have it. And I think we could work it out. I think we could figure out how to do something better that way. I definitely am feeling like that about it.
Mm-hmm. Renee, voters are being asked to consider a 0.5% sales tax for street maintenance and repair. Do you think that that's the right approach for a long-term solution to have funding for street maintenance?
I like that approach to it. I appreciate that it wouldn't come off I just bought a house, so it's going to be this whole thing, right? So turning that out right into the community and talking to them about that when I'm knocking on doors. I like that approach in that it comes to people who are coming into this regional hub to do whatever they want to do here, but to support the streets and the maintenance of that. And people are talking about the streets all the time. Mm-hmm. So good solutions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Howie?
I'm 110% supportive of it. Mm-hmm. And while I've really had a...
You're a mathematician too with 110%.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Well, I failed 6th grade math, but that's another story. But I really think that the plan as brought forward by the administration, the mayor, and David Montgomery is tremendous. I think it's a great solution to a problem that continues to exhibit itself in our community. It brings a lot of different payers, the tourists involved, and can now be contributors to this problem and stuff like that. I've been a real advocate of telling the administration and all of government, for that matter, to stop taking our money away. But this is clearly one referendum vote I think that people can really get behind and feel really good about, because we need a long-term solution. We lost the casino revenues that were committed to this previously, and this is a good solution. I've been encouraged, and I think Renee has too. We've been out telling everybody in our 4 districts or 4 neighborhoods to support this. This is really good for Duluth.
So let me ask you then, what do you think of the water rate increase?
I'm totally against it. I think it's excessive. I've been on record saying that I think it's inappropriate for a non-elected body, the PUC, to be making this decision. I think the decision need to be made by elected city councilors, and I think that it was set up in a manner that isolated and protected city councilors from the political fallouts of making those type of tough decisions.
Renee, same question to you, please.
Water. Yeah, people on the doors are definitely talking about the rates and things going up. But at the same time, we want things fixed, and we want clean water, we want good water. We got to figure out how to do that. And sometimes it's about giving a little bit more than sharing that way about figuring something out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So.
And my concern, Denny, is that, and I think Renee and I agree on this, is we've got limited resources, mm-hmm. and at what point does the citizenry, the taxpayers of this community, push back? And I think we're really at that tipping point, and that's I think that that's one of the things we'll be watching, I think, during this election is, are people ready to push back? What message are they giving the administration? Are they tapped out? I would submit that they are, and that they want us to be a little bit more conservative and get back to the basics of city government.
We only have about a minute left, but Lake Superior Zoo is planning a major renovation. What role do you think the city should have in supporting that and other attractions in the city?
I know the council helped to support some money again, but I do think the CEO now will put the pedal to the metal and do his work there. I have a feeling I work with him quite a bit, so I know he says what he's going to do and does it. So I believe that.
Mm-hmm. Howie?
I think it speaks to, or begs for a larger question, and the question is, should the city of Duluth be in the attractions business? And what you're seeing is we're starting to rob the city tourism receipts very heavily, both for the Spirit Mountain and the zoo, and it's just not sustainable. You know, if we have a dip, we're in real trouble with those attractions.
We have to
All
end
right,
it
we're in trouble with our times.
there. Renee Van Nett and Howie Hanson, thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. The early winter storm that dumped snow across the area last Friday had a major impact on the Lake Superior shoreline. Already, high water levels combined with 60-mile-an-hour winds to wash out sections of boardwalk in Duluth, forcing the closure of Brighton Beach due to storm damage. The city has spent most of this week assessing the damage and figuring out how to pay for the repairs. And here with an update is Emily Larson, the mayor of Duluth. And Mayor, thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So for people who haven't been awake for the last week, structurally, how much damage is there in the city of Duluth?
It was like a secret storm. So it was just to remind people that we had, this really brief kind of intense snow last week, Friday.
Right.
And then it just kind of dissipated and people went about their business. But actually really significantly impacted public land in the city of Duluth. We have just submitted our application to the state of Minnesota for emergency assistance, $2.5 million worth of damage. Oh, and just comparing that, last year, our windstorm, the one that was visually high impact, big discomfort for our residents, a lot going on. That was about $1.2 million worth of damage. So what we're seeing is damage to the lake walk, of course, Brighton Beach, roads, and then culverts. A lot of sediment and rocks have kind of gone into some of those places. If you go down to the lake walk, you'll see areas that have kind of been burrowed out. So it's one of those that has, like, you didn't expect it.
Yeah.
You didn't think it would be quite that bad, but it is.
How soon do you expect to hear either yes or no from the state? And is there federal funding also available for help?
I don't think we don't anticipate it registering for federal funding. I don't know exactly the timeline from the state. I can say with really great clarity, we have been working on this all week long, and the asphalt of the lake walk is open. Duluth is open for our residents and for our guests. And Brighton Beach should be open on Monday. We're waiting to kind of see if we get any more snow this weekend. But what's also very clear is, we're not going to have that boardwalk area fixed. Structurally, we need to get in there and make sure everything's safe underneath, that the foundation of that is good and safe. And we will get it fixed. Like, whether we get state funds or not, it is a high priority area for us, our tourists, our residents, our commuters. It's going to.
Where will the money come if we don't get state funding?
We will figure that out. We have some options in our parks maintenance funds, but we don't have $2.5 million sitting there. Yeah.
What about damage inside the harbor? There were already some concerns about the stability of the dock walls, for instance, behind the deck. Was there damage there that might push up plans for that a little bit more?
Yeah, so kind of the seawall area behind the deck, and actually that's going to be that is our lead bonding request, along with finishing up the steam plant, to the bonding request for the state legislature, to the state of Minnesota. But yes, we actually did see some sinkholes expand, and those areas had already been cordoned off. But in one of our meetings this week, we talked about how much examination have we done there, what else do we need to do to really assess. We see bigger sinkholes in the areas that already had them. We aren't seeing significant impacts in some of the other areas. It feels safe, it is safe. We've kind of secured any areas that aren't. But it does help tell the story of why that kind of a project is so important. It's infrastructure, but it's infrastructure that's holding up for a street and a sidewalk and the whole deck. So it's really important.
During and after the storm, there was a problem with water treatment. Is there still a problem?
No, that's a great question. Thank you. We were really good about letting the public know we had high turbidity, which is essentially sediment that kind of gets in. No, we have wonderful staff, and I should just, first of all, publicly thank the City of Duluth staff who have worked literally around the clock since this happened, whether it's in the water treatment plant or just making sure things are safe and stable or assessing our damage. Drinking water was always safe, did not get contaminated, was not a health risk or a health hazard. It did have some turbidity and some discoloring, but of course we are constantly adjusting our water. And it is a really important resource for people. As we've seen in Flint and other places, things can go bad quickly and stay bad. We don't have that problem here. We didn't last week, and we won't moving forward.
Of course, people love the waterfront.
Yeah.
And I imagine there are a lot of people who are going down there wanting to pick things up and help straighten up. Are there things that people can do that actually are helpful to the efforts that the city is doing, or do you just want people to kind of
It's been
back
so
from it?
hard to tell people thanks and we'll let you know. So I think we've gotten through the parts that make sense for now. A lot of those areas have been cleaned up. And some of it is just, it's heavy, equipment bearing work now that has to happen. And so we want to welcome people's help and support. I think in the spring when we come back to the boardwalk, we'll have more opportunities to do that. At this point, I think we're okay, but the outpouring has been wonderful. People wanting to fundraise, people wanting to support in so many ways.
Lake Superior's level is high right now.
Thank you.
Should people on Park Point be worried about this winter and maybe the next year to come? I know they've had water in their basements, they've had some pump failures.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm here just talking about public issues with the storm.
But should they worry?
Well, some of them are worried, and they had flooding, and Canal Park businesses had flooding, and a high water table is problematic. And with that, when you get these high winds, and it really brings everything in. Park Point Beach had significant impact at certain points, certain parts of it. Whether or not they should be more worried than they were before, I guess I can't quite ascertain, but I do know that as we move forward and we're looking at repairs, whether it's the lake walk or to the beachfront, we do need to be thinking about climate adaptation and what are the things we need to do as we are rebuilding those so that when the next windstorm or the next snowstorm or whatever comes, we can withstand that.
And of course, the gales of November are notorious. So we're all kind of holding our breath right now. Mayor, thank you so much for coming in and sharing an update. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck. At one time, Miles Lord was one of the most well-known federal judges in the United States. Lord was born and raised on the Cuyuna Range and rose to prominence handling high-profile cases, including the Delcon Shield and reserve mining suits. Now a new biography is out on Judge Lord, who passed away in 2016 at the age of 97. And joining us is the author, Roberta Walburn, an attorney and former law clerk of Judge Miles. And thanks for being here, Roberta.
Thank you so much for having me.
What made you intrigued about this topic to the point where you wanted to kind of put your law career on hold and dive into writing this biography?
I wanted to get back to writing. My roots were in journalism, and when I started to think about a book, I could think of no better topic than Miles Lord. He had such an enormous impact on the landscape of this state, both in the legal community and in the political community, and he was such a colorful character. So it was the combination of the impact that he had on the state and the fact that he was such great copy because he was such a character, one-of-a-kind person.
And you had personal connection with him as a law clerk during the Delcon Shield case, I understand.
That's correct. I graduated from law school and went to clerk for a year and a half for the judge. And as it happened, he took on the Delcon Shield IUD litigation, one of the largest lawsuits in the country at that time. It was quite an adventure.
So when he took on that case, explain to us a little bit about, again, for our audience, what the Dalkon Shield case was all about. Some women were actually dying, weren't they, from the Dalkon Shield?
Some women died. Tens of thousands suffered
This was a birth control device.
horrendous infections. It was a birth control device that had a tail string that wicked bacteria into the uterus and caused just horrendous infections. Many women lost their infertility, and as you said, some died. The litigation had been going on for more than a decade in front of other judges around the country, and it was really stalled in a quagmire. The Fortune 500 manufacturer hired more than 100 law firms around the country, was spending millions of dollars. And the short story of Judge Lord's involvement is in 90 days, after 10 years of litigation in front of other judges, in 90 days he essentially blew it out of the water.
Remarkable. Yeah.
He ended up getting hauled up on judicial misconduct
Yeah, he
charges
did.
for what he did.
The
but-
Eighth Circuit gave him kind of a black eye.
Right, right.
Now, of course, in our area, his name is so well known for the Reserve mining case. Reserve was dumping tailings into Lake Superior. What was the significance and the impact of his involvement and ruling in that case?
The Reserve mining case was really the first major case of the early environmental era in the 1970s. And Reserve was dumping 67,000 tons of waste into the lake every single day. And citizens of Duluth and other North Shore communities were drinking that water unfiltered. And it would be shown during the trial that the waste had asbestos-like fibers in it. So it was really a landmark case in terms of protecting the environment and protecting the health of the citizens. Very controversial because it was a huge employer, had a huge economic impact. The judge had family members who worked at Reserve. He had grown up with many of the men who ended up working at Reserve. His loyalties were very conflicted at the beginning, but by the end he realized that the lake dumping had to stop.
You wrote in your book, beautifully written, how he took on bullies as a kid growing up on the Cuyuna Iron Range. So now he was taking on corporate bullies.
He learned, you're exactly right, he learned how to fight bullies when he was a kid in Crosby Ironton. He was a kind of a scrawny kid, but he didn't like seeing other kids getting beat up in the schoolyard, and he kind of appointed himself to be the protector. And he hated bullies his whole life, and he went from fighting bullies in the streets and schoolyards of the Iron Range to fighting bullies in corporate boardrooms across the country.
What made him such a powerful force?
He always took it upon himself to help the underdog, and he had a powerful personality. He wanted to change the world, and with the power of the federal judiciary behind him, federal judges have enormous power, and he liked to use every single bit of it.
3 DFL members, Judge Miles Lord, Hubert Humphrey, the Vice President of the United States, and Senator Eugene McCarthy. An odd mix. They were good friends, yet they didn't see everything eye to eye.
They all came together in the 1940s, along with some other notables, including Walter Mondale, and they had similar backgrounds, all grew up very poor in small towns, and a similar philosophy that they were going to help the least fortunate among us. But their ambitions sometimes clashed, most notably in the 1968 presidential campaign, when Hubert Humphrey was representing one wing of the Democratic Party and Eugene McCarthy the other in a fight for the Democratic nomination for president. And Miles Lord found himself smack in the middle of those men.
A federal judge is not supposed to show his politics.
Exactly.
But he was weaving on this fine line, was he not?
Well, it wasn't a very fine line. He crossed it, and he wasn't secret about it. He was riding on the campaign planes with both Eugene and Hubert, and he felt that it was so important that Hubert Humphrey be elected president that he was willing to give up his federal judgeship to see that happen.
There has been so much discussion in recent years about how politicized the judiciary has become. Was he really a pioneer in that?
I wouldn't say a pioneer, but I think back in those days, judges, to be appointed a federal judge, oftentimes you need a political connection. It's a presidential appointment. So many federal judges have politics in their background. Miles, he drew a distinction between what he was doing in his spare time in politics and what he was doing on the bench.
All right, well, we're out of time, but you have a book signing coming up?
Tomorrow, 3 o'clock at Zenith Bookstore.
All right, thank you
Roberta,
so much for coming in.
I thoroughly enjoyed your book. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's time now for the week's business news from the folks at Business North. L&M Radiator will invest $17.6 million and hire 22 employees in an expansion of its Hibbing plant. The manufacturer of radiators and other heat exchangers will add 100,000 square feet of space and pay wages averaging $15.86 an hour. The project is being assisted by a $354,000 state grant. L&M employs 450 people worldwide, with more than 200 at the company's Hibbing headquarters. It has an annual payroll of more than $8.5 million in Hibbing.
The University of Wisconsin-Superior will suspend 25 academic programs. Students who have declared those majors or minors will be allowed to complete their studies. Campus officials said UWS students faced a multitude of program choices and made misguided decisions. About 3% of undergraduate majors are currently enrolled in one of the major programs of studies that will be cut. No faculty will be laid off. The university will continue to offer more than 50 majors and more than 40 minors.
A University of Minnesota professor with both economic and environmental credentials believes the region must shed its all-or-nothing mentality. Stephen Pulaski told the 8th Regional Economic Indicators Forum that too many controversial debates are dominated by emotion and moral indignation. He said citizens should evaluate trade-offs, considering all the benefits, costs, and potential risks. If regulators have environmental standards in place and the standards can be met, then projects should proceed, Pulaski said. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Well, call now if you have a comment. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message. You can also send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org and visit the WDSE website for the latest schedule information, updates on your favorite local shows, and news here at the station. And Denny, good luck to all of the hunters heading out to the cabin and the woods for the Minnesota deer hunting season.
I saw a couple of nice bucks today. I think the deer are hiding in Duluth.
I think some of them are hiding in my yard. But,
I understand.
For Denny and the crew here at WDSE, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.